So for my presentation, I decided to do the Stanford prison experiment. So what exactly was the Stanford prison experiment? Well, on August 14th, 1971, Dr. Phil Zimbardo, along with his colleagues, had intended for an experiment to show that normal people could behave in pathological ways even without the external pressure of an experimenter authority. So basically how he achieved this was he had 15 participants, and 9 of them was supposed to be the fake inmates, and the other 6 would play guards. 3 of them would do it in the morning, and then the other 3 would do it at night. And supposedly the experiment was supposed to go on for 2 weeks, but it had only ended up lasting for 6 days. As according to Zimbardo, this planned 2-week simulation had to be ended after 6 days because the inhumanity of the evil situation had totally dominated the humanity of the good participants. So the method that Dr. Zimbardo used was he set up a fake prison in the Jordan Hall of Stanford University, and in there he only gave 9 inmates a number, and only then will they be called by their numbers. They will never be called by their names, all while in the make-believe prison, as to strip them off of their identity. And why was it questioned? It was questioned when Fromm pointed out the unethical situations that the inmates had to go through during the experiment. He had also pointed out that before the experiment could go through, they didn't exactly through that the questions they were asking. Before they could actually go through with the experiment, they had to be interviewed and to determine if they had any underlying mental health issues that the experimenters were supposed to be aware of, as it could have problems with the experiment. And quote-unquote by Fromm, the personality pretests administered to the volunteers might have detected the predisposition among some of the subjects for sadistic or masochistic behavior. And lastly, the participants, the inmates that participated, might have been confusing that the make-believe prison from a real-life prison, as they have never been to an actual prison before. And according to Fromm, quote-unquote, Fromm also argued against Zimbardo's situationist explanation of the Stanford prison experiment, pointing out that because 2/3 of the guards did not commit sadistic acts for personal kicks, the experiment seems to rather to show that one cannot transform people so easily into sadists by providing them with the proper situation, as a counter to Dr. Zimbardo's hypotheses that wrong situation can turn anyone bad. And according to Dr. Zimbardo, when the experiment had ended, he had concluded that individuals will conform to the social role that they are given, especially if that role is seen or has a stereotypical character in the way society views it. So, for example, the fake prison guards only acted like that based on what they think a prison guard should act, because it has a stereotypical way of them acting. So that's where the problem comes in, and a lot of the inaccuracies that happen, as a lot of things were exaggerated for the sake of the experiment, and there were manipulation of the prison guards and how the inmate participants had acted. So why was it inaccurate? Well, the guards were aware of the results the experiment was supposed to produce. The experiment was they were aware that they must provide quote-unquote psychological environment in which the inmate participants lose their sense of identity, where they have to act violently, and the feeling of anonymity. And the guards also received an orientation. They were given instructions they had to enforce silence on like lining them up against the wall, and they had to be waking up at 6 a.m. They had to do chores like shoe shining and blanket cleaning. They also suggested, the experimenter suggested, that the guards be sarcastic when it comes to the inmates, and they were supposed to have dinner at 5:30 p.m. till 6 p.m. And lastly, the guards knew they had to create an environment uh, that resembles a prison. They were given instruction to prevent inmates from having any type of privacy, their names stripped off, no freedom of action. The inmates will always be under surveillance, and this way, the guards had and the experimenters had all the power in the situation, creating a feeling of powerlessness and vulnerability to the inmates, for the inmates. And lastly, according to Texier, hopefully the present study will contribute to psychology's epistemological self-examination, and expose the Stanford prison experiment for what it was, an incredibly flawed study that should have died an early death. And many, including Fromm and Festinger, found Dr. Zimbardo's experiment to be flawed and had criticized it, but it remains as one of psychology's most famous studies. And my resources. Thank you.